Hello and welcome back to The Lost Signals discusses pretty much everything. I think this episode is
pop culture grab bag, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna do a pop culture roundup. This kind of was spawned out of the idea that we haven't done too much TV lately, and we've all been watching, or at least I've been watching a lot more TV than normal in these days of the apocalypse. So,
in these uncertain times,
right? So we're just going to kind of like chat about what we've been imbibing pop culture wise lately and you know, give our opinions and recommendations on a bunch of stuff. So why don't we start it off? Actually, I'm going to go around. I'm going to wait till last because I have probably 30 TV shows here on my list. So like I can go whenever, but Scott, why don't we start out with you? Just give us something.
All right. So I think higher on my list is something.
Actually, I'm sorry. Hang on a second. I would like to introduce everybody because I forgot to do that last time and I forgot to do it again. Hey, we figured it out.
I just assumed you know who I am.
My name is Steve Ramosi. I'm going to be your host. Joined today by Scott Thurlow.
Hello there.
Jonathan Ian Manzer.
I'm a man who needs no introduction.
And Christopher Morgan.
I'm imbibing Woodford Reserve double cask.
Cheers! I've got
Mars forever.
I've got the Mars as well. We actually got a bottle. So
that'll be separate but
the sherry or the blue.
That's our first recommendation. Our first pop culture recommendation. We've been drinking a little Japanese whiskey.
The sherry or the blue label.
The blue label because I spent way too much money already. But I'm gonna get the sherry the next time. Sherry casks. But all right, Scotty, tell us what you've been watching.
Yes, sir. So it's something I've mentioned you guys off cast, but I don't think anyone else you guys have actually watched it. I'm gonna go with Penny Dreadful: City of Angels, which I liked the original series of Penny Dreadful. This one I described to you guys sort of elevator pitch logline, Chinatown with some supernatural elements, but really they're much more subdued, much more in the background, and it's just an intrigue in a murder happens in 1938 LA, and then there's a detective like Nathan Lane plays an old Jewish detective who is partnered with the first Mexican cop on the force, and there's a big tension between the police and the Mexican community, and it's just all these like intrigues, like city council guys are like doing like shady deals, like it's all the intrigue noir stuff that you think of in something like that. I think I've been doing a good job with it. I believe there's 4 or 5 episodes, and yeah, I do recommend it quite a bit.
Does Charlton Heston play the Mexican cop?
He does not, so that's a good
call back to one of our first episodes.
Yeah, they actually have a very good Mexican actor. I don't remember his name. Like Nathan Lane's really the only person I remember, or Natalie Dormer is in it, but she also is sort of like not the forefront of it. But all I'm saying is I think they do a really good job with touching on the noir tropes and elements that you're familiar with, but telling a really good story. So I quite have been enjoying it, and I do recommend it. So that's my number one thing that I've been watching, one of them at least.
Nice. Ian, what do you think? What's yours?
Well, the one TV show that I'm really thrilled with watching is a British show. I'm an Anglophile, and they're releasing the series every Thursday on YouTube for free. Taskmaster. I love me some Greg Davies. I love me some Alex Horn, and I think it is such a delightful show. And it's if you don't know what it's about, it's basically Alex Horn through Greg Davies assigns a bunch of British celebrities random tasks to do, and then scores them. It's adorable.
It's highly entertaining.
Yes.
I have seen clips of it that Ian's made me watch. Like, not even made me watch. I watch it with him. And I was like, solid.
I got to check that out. All right, Chris, what do you think?
Well, in my Starfleet Pride shirt and my Starfleet glass, in which I'm drinking bourbon, I'm going to talk about Picard because Seven drinks bourbon in the Picard. It is kind of a follow-up. It's kind of more like it's really weird to say epilogue, but it is towards the end. It is, excuse me, it's Picard's story after he gives up being captain of the Enterprise. And
sorry, it is? I thought it was a precursor to that, Chris, actually. Okay, fair enough. I did not know.
No. He's old AF in this.
Go on.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And in real life, too.
Sure.
The only problem is they keep bringing up Nemesis, which is like such a horrible movie, and they keep bringing up how it died, and it's like, yeah, in the most retarded way. Sorry, I didn't mean to use that word. In the most ridiculous way.
Sure.
I sucked. Please delete that. I'm going to say this about the story. I loved it. Michael Chabon was the showrunner for it, and the woman who grew up on the original series, the woman who directed the first 3 episodes and really set the stage for it, grew up on The Next Generation. So there's a lot of nice little Easter eggs that are not like
to that, yeah,
cool. Wanks or winks. I'm going to say there's 2 things about it. Number one, there are a couple conceits in there that I wish they had steered away from.
Sure.
Towards the end, it's just towards the end, like it's just like they went a couple places I don't think they needed to go, and I think it stood out because it was the only time I felt like, all right, now you're doing a little fan service here.
Yeah.
And number 2,
too much fan wank, a little bit there. You're saying
chief villain, or I guess the person who was supposed to be the chief villain, was pretty one-dimensional. But like one character out of a larger ensemble of characters and a very complete world, and as somebody who's been watching a lot of Star Trek recently for another project, they did a good job with it. Really good job.
Spot on. What do you got, Steve-O?
Nice. All right. So my
monstrous list.
First one. I want to say something that no one else is going to say, which I'm going to talk about solar opposites, I suppose.
Right. Do it up.
It's kind of like a shittier Rick and Morty, right? It's Justin Roiland's project. It's okay, but it's not. It doesn't have the heart that Rick and Morty has. It follows these 4 aliens who are stuck on Earth. It's very much like Third Rock from the Sun.
Yes,
if it was more vulgar, I guess. And like every episode ends up being it's almost like Rick and Morty meets what the hell? Wow, never mind. I forget it. I'm not gonna remember the name of the show. But they just end up being like very violent at the end of every episode, and like it's can be fun, but it's for the most part missable, especially if you have Rick and Morty. So it's fine, but
for sure.
Yeah, whatever. All right, Scotty, we're back to you. What do you got?
All right, so I want to introduce you guys. Like, it's not nothing mind blowing, but I mentioned it briefly the other day when we were doing our like offcast like happy hour. So it's called the Rule of 3. That is to say, when you watch 3 episodes of something, then you know like whether or not you think it's good or you're going to stay into it. So I didn't do this on purpose. I swear to you, I didn't. But it happened to be that I watched 3 shows that I caught 3 episodes of. So I'm going to give you one positive one and one that I don't think like I just didn't get into. So that one being Tales from the Loop. I know, Steve-O, actually you told me about it. It's on Amazon. I caught 3 episodes. Jonathan Pryce is in it. And like, while I like the idea and some of the execution, I just don't think it comes off like it didn't get me into it as much. So like it might, your mileage may vary for sure, but I did catch 3 episodes.
Talk about that one.
Yeah,
in a minute.
I did catch 3 episodes, and that was my assessment of it. Now, on the opposite end, I think I watched, first of all, the first 3 episodes of Snowpiercer, the series, which are only 3 of so far. And I think at the end of the 3rd one, I thought to myself, yes, you've got me. I'm along for this ride, if you will. Again, no pun intended. Like, I'm along for the show. And I think they set it up. Their setup, it works really well. I think the acting is solid. I think the writing is pretty spot on. So I'll give it credit on that. And sort of a middle-of-the-road one, this is also one, I'll let you talk more about it, Steve-O, but I did also watch the first 3 episodes of Devs, and I thought, you know what, I am invested in this, and I'm probably going to finish that out. So I'm just saying, like, I found it interesting that the Rule of 3 seems to, like, apply, or at least to the things I've been watching generally, and those specifically 3 shows, which I've watched 3 episodes of, that's, like, what I placed Tales from the Loop at the low end, Snowpiercer about the middle, and then Devs probably actually at this point a little bit higher than that. But even so, all I'm saying is 3 of those, I think I recommend 2 out of the 3.
Snuck in 3 right there. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you with the sunk cost fallacy, which is if you're going to invest 3 hours of your time into a terrible show, you might as well finish it off.
But see,
But I challenge yours. But I'm going to talk about a great sunk cost fallacy, which is something that got me through grad school, which is the Great British Bake Off. My God, what a waste of time. What a glorious waste. I don't know why I care about these people baking ridiculous things. I don't care why I think Paul Hollywood's the fucking man, but he is. And I adore that show because after 14 hours of studying and grading papers and all this, all I want to do is watch cool British grannies bake some stuff for me.
Well, I was gonna say if I might jump in, I saw a couple episodes of that and I actually do really love it. I finally watched a little bit of it. It's great.
He really loves it.
It's amazing. It shouldn't be. But it is.
Yeah, but I have to also talk about the shows that Scott talked about that I saw. I actually absolutely love Devs. I thought that was a great show. I watched all of it, and I think you will have a great time if you're interested in quantum theory or anything like that. With that one.
Got me.
And then Tales from the Loop, I adore that show. It's one of my favorite shows in recent history. But it is a very slow burn. And it's not for everybody for sure. I completely.
Devs, real quick. I'm sorry. Like, which one?
Yeah.
Would you, yeah. Okay.
I think that Devs is an incredible nod to the philosophy of quantum computing and things like that. But Tales from the Loop, I think, is more artistically important, I guess. Not to say that Devs isn't, because I think that Devs is beautifully shot and just a gorgeous show. But Tales from the Loop is one of the most incredible things that I've watched in terms of filmmaking in recent history, in terms of like pulling everything together, cinematography. The soundtrack is incredible. Like I just am enthralled with everything.
I'll say I did like the soundtrack, but story narrative wise, it just didn't get me. But I get you. Fair enough.
I get that. It's like I said, it's certainly not a thing that everybody's gonna like, and that's fine. Like, it doesn't need to be. But for me, like, that slow burn reminded me of Tarkovsky, and I know that the showrunner of Tales from the Loop said that Tarkovsky was a huge influence and perhaps the most important influence on the work, and a couple others where I'm blanking on right now, but like amazing filmmakers, like really put that show references really amazing filmmakers, and it really shows to me, I think.
I hear you.
So, Chris, let me go back to you. What's your next one?
What do you got, buddy?
First of all, I concur. Devs is awesome. Beth and I, we stopped long enough to go out and get sushi and come back. We loved it. Everything about it works, in my opinion. Snowpiercer, Scott, I am amazed what they did with this show. I figured it wouldn't last the first episode and a half, and they've got me intrigued. But I'm going to take a little bit of a turn here, and I'm going to discuss a little music. Today is June 5th, 2020, and Droid Bishop and Magic Sword released a collaboration,
FNA,
which is outstanding. It's called Supernova. And today, by the time you get this, it's not going to make any difference, but they are donating the proceeds of it to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. So, piggybacking on that, my favorite album so far this year is Magic Sword's new record, Endless.
Yep.
Absolutely superb. I mean, the first song, I'll have to look it up because I don't have it on recall. The Depths of Power is, to me, it is, I know Empress is your favorite, Scott, and Empress is a fantastic song, but when I heard Depths of Power, you have, it builds, and it's just like, I feel like there's a discussion going on, and the guitar is in the background, and the whole song, I feel like builds up to the guitar solo, Sears guitar solo. And the first time I heard it, I just like burst into tears. It's so beautiful. Beth got in the car. I'm like, you have to listen to this, and she's like, what am I listening to? Play it from the beginning, please. it took me because it's also in 6/8, which is one of my favorite time
Tempos. Yep.
And the album is just absolutely positively incredible. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend checking out the new single Supernova. And both Droid Bishop, as somebody who follows both of them, both Droid Bishop and Magic Sword have been doing a lot during this quarantine to keep in touch with their fans and entertain us. So I'm going to give a shout out to them on Patreon, Twitch, and every Friday night, Keeper does a DJ set on YouTube. And yeah, so those are two good artists you should check out.
Word.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to start to put some stuff together that I know you guys haven't watched and kind of I feel like goes together just to speed things up a little bit on my end. So I have been watching since its inception, The Flash on the CW. But that's not what I want to talk about. Flash is, I mean, all those shows are trash. They're just like dumb soap opera trash.
It's the CW, man.
But I do want to talk about Batwoman just for an interesting thing. So like I started watching Batwoman this year to see if it was any good, and it was like mediocre like all the rest of the shows. But Ruby Rose, the star of the show, just quit after the first season, which is pretty wild. And I guess she had her problems with what was going on there. Hasn't really spoken out about it, but that's a big
probably
thing.
The CW.
Yeah. It's probably not the best environment to work in, I would guess. Sure. To like pump out 23 episodes of like, very, very intensely physical work that is like kind of just soap opera-y trash. But like, and the other thing is like, I didn't find her to be a terrific actor. I thought that the villain of that show was amazing, and I wish I could remember.
Who is it? Yeah, damn it! I was going to ask you that question.
I'll look it up and I'll tell you guys in a bit. But
fair enough.
I thought that the villain was a much better actor than Rose. So like them playing off each other was kind of one-sided a lot of the series. And the other one that I wanted to mention is Stargirl. Just came out on DC. Luke Wilson's in it.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like the continuation of like the Justice Society all gets murdered, which is a bunch of like heavy hitters, like all get murdered, and then including Starman, and then Stargirl picks up the Starman staff, and
sure.
It's okay so far.
I'm completely not oblivious. I'm ambivalent to the knowledge of Luke Wilson being in that. It doesn't detract or add to that.
Yeah, he's like the weirdest thing about it is like he's a sidekick to Starman, and then this like 13-year-old chick picks up this, or like 16.
Bowie?
Yeah, no, it's actually played by Joel McHale.
See, that adds a little bit to
that is a selling point. It seems,
but he's very briefly in it. Like he's like murdered in the first scene, and then his like and then this like 16-year-old girl picks up the staff, and he immediately becomes a sidekick to her too. It's like
sounds like a Luke Wilson thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. You're not gonna use like you have years of superhero experience. You're just gonna let her like run the show, I guess. Okay, cool. So it's that one's mediocre too. It's whatever, but it's out there.
It's okay, but not like necessarily like mind blowing shit like superhero wise.
I would never like say, oh, you have to watch this show, but it's fine, superhero dumb fun if you want to check something out.
Sure.
So all right, let's keep it moving. Who's next?
All right, so I got a couple. I think I have a little block of things that at least three like a number of us are watching. So for example, What You Do in the Shadows. I believe Chris and I have been watching it, and Steve as well. Second season has been quite excellent. Matt Berry is always amazing, but I think everyone in that show does a great job. And I think they took the what they built as a baseline in the first season and just ran with it and just did amazing things with each character and the scripts and each show. The writing has been fantastic, so I definitely recommend it. Even if you haven't watched the first season, you could probably jump into the second and like get caught up pretty quickly and enjoy it quite a bit. So good, Chris.
First season they developed the world and the characters, and the second season right from the word go. So I mean, watch great, but Scott, yeah, it's just like the second season. The reason they knocked out of the cart is because they've been knocking out of the park is because the first season was so solid in terms of creating the world and these characters. So good call.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's well said. And I guess another one. I don't want to steal this on you. I'll save one, but I guess I'm wearing the shirt, so I'm just going to throw out Rick and Morty.
Yeah, you just can't steal all of the good ones.
I'm stealing that one. I'll say it, and then. So, what do you think?
Well, I loved Rick and Morty because it's a deconstruction of both the development of these type of shows, but also as a planting a flag of divorcing itself from the fan base and the pressures of the fan base, and saying this is our story. This is how we're going to tackle Rick and Morty going forward, and we'll be episodic when we need to be. We'll be canonical when we need to be. Have faith in us and get off our backs, man. Yeah, and but also the deconstruction of the character of Rick, and the fact that he had, while they're defining their place, they also destroyed, in a sense, his omnipotence throughout this, and they depowered him while retaining the level of his character.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was a very not my favorite season, but I thought it was a very strong season overall.
I really agree. Yeah. I really love the part on the train where they are like, here's all this canon shit that all these like people have been talking about. Now we can't do it anymore because we already like made it a joke. Like we made it a one-off joke.
Yeah. It was amazing. Like fuck off, like a troll of the fans. I think a toxic section of fans, at least, like
right.
Well, I think they do in the Dragon episode. They point out like basically this is where Game of Thrones went wrong with trying to appease the fan base versus doing their own thing. And overall, I thought like they did a great job of breaking down every expectation.
I agree.
Is apparently, and I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones, but apparently, I thought the last two seasons didn't appease this fan base.
They tried to please everyone without pleasing anyone.
Yeah,
pretty much.
They tell that both fronts, Chris, if you will. Yeah.
Good call. All
right. So you got another one for us, Chris, or Ian? I don't know if that counts as yours.
That's fine. It's fine.
All right, Chris, what do you got?
I'm going to bring up I hope I'm not stepping on your feet, Steve. I'm going to bring up The Great. The Great, like Devs, is a limited series. There is one and done. Ellie Fanning and Nicholas Hoult lead a stellar cast. It is funny.
Elle Fanning. Sorry.
It is really, 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 really funny. It is really, 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 really dark at times. It balances itself out really well and ends perfectly. It ends perfectly.
Yeah, you guys really.
Yeah, 100%. It's a terrific show. Anybody who has Hulu, I highly suggest watching it. Nick Hoult is amazing. The writer of this show is the writer of The Favorite. If you like The Favorite, which I really did. It was my favorite movie of last year.
We reviewed. Yep.
So yeah, check out The Great. It is just a vulgar. It's not super historically accurate, except for in terms of the kind of the ideas that were going around, or like the feeling of the era, right? Like it's not like about the events. It's about the feeling of what was happening at the time, and it does a really good job of doing that in at once like horrifying and hilarious way. I highly recommend.
I like it. Yeah.
And props to Nicholas Hoult. He is after Shreya Dashlu and maybe one other. He says fuck very, very well. I applaud his use of profanity. It's fucking delicious, isn't it?
Absolutely. He's so good. All right, so let's talk about.
Why don't you do the one that's on your background, or we have to cover that?
I was gonna wait for you to do it.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm gonna let you do it, and I'll talk about it after you're done with it. But I'm gonna bring up Upload, which I don't think anybody else has seen. Another Greg Daniels show. Actually, I'm gonna talk about Upload and Space Force because I don't think any of you guys have seen either one of them. They're both okay. I think Upload is better. Upload is okay to pretty good. Space Force is mediocre
below that
for most of it. I think your mileage may vary on both of them, obviously, but Upload started off like difficult to watch for me, just because I absolutely hated the main character at first. Kind of vacillates between hating him and like thinking he's all right, maybe, throughout most of the series, but it's pretty good, and I think they're gonna definitely have a season 2, which I'm looking forward to. Space Force, same deal as far as the season 2. There's like a side thing that happens in this that is not explained literally at all. It's just a thing that's happening throughout the entire season. And you get to the end of the season like, oh, I thought this was going to pay off, and it does not. So I'm interested to see what the whole deal is with that, I guess. But
sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, almost surely. But I mean, so Greg Daniels has said that he is going to explain it at some point. So I guess we'll see. But both of them were pretty all right. Upload better than Space Force. Space Force has like I could see Space Force getting better, but first season was fairly mediocre. So that's my 2.
You got anything, Maury? Or any shows?
Oh, no shows. I have more stuff to say, though.
All right, yeah. So how about this? Just if you don't mind, I will jump in. So I got a couple more shows, but I want to switch a la Chris. I'll switch to some games a little bit, like almost bonus points that we used to do. So I played about 3 or 4 games in the past month or so, shorter ones. The best one I played has been Maneater. So you play as a shark, and Chris Parnell narrates, and like it's just a highly enjoyable junk food game. You know, like it's GTA instead of you being like some gangster, you're just a shark, like doing like ridiculous stuff and leveling up.
Very pro shark. It's very pro environment.
It's pro environment, exactly, Chris. So yeah, for what it is, I think it's worth it. It's not even a full price game. It's $40.
So you're a traitor to humanity then, because
kind of. But I'm a set of sharks.
Sharks are terrifying.
And then I mean, of course they are. But I've always been fascinated as a kid. I got into like researching like sharks as a creature, as an animal. And then at the opposite end of the scale, I have to say I was very disappointed in John Wick Hex as the game. They ported it over, and I don't know what it was, but at least the PS4 version crashed a lot, like possibly more than any game I've ever played, crashed so much. So that just like, soured my experience. And even though I liked the idea of it, like even like the mechanics of how it played out, it sometimes just didn't click. It just didn't work the way it advertised itself as. So I unfortunately have to say I don't recommend the John Wick game, even though I tried to get into it and play it, but I wanted to, but there it is. That's my assessment of it. So that's also what I was checking out on top of TV shows. So
I'm currently reading Zero, the biography of a dangerous idea, which Steve-O and Scott are unfortunate enough to hear me rant about. It is fascinating work.
I'm into it.
I'm a postmodernist, and I like the idea of taking a look at something we take for certainty and kind of looking at it as a kind of historical and philosophical structure. And I think it's a fascinating read if you're into the philosophy of mathematics. And I will go on because if I do, I'll be here for another
episode. But you're digging it quite a bit. And
I just got done with discussion on Pythagoras and the cult of numerology. Yeah,
nice.
Very nice.
What do you think, Chris? What's your next one?
I think there's 2 things I keep coming back to that make me laugh. Speaking of John Wick, highly recommend. Ryan George does, Screen Rant does pitch meeting, and they are a constant source of amusement for me. I highly recommend checking out the John Wick pitch meeting.
Yeah, okay.
I was the last one of us, admittedly, to jump on this train, and their last episode is before 2020, but Letterkenny is something that I keep going back to, and it's just one of those things where it's a really funny show, but it's just such a rich world. So rich to the point where, well, if all these people lived by us, where would they live? And Scott that Dairy Farm by you is where Dairy would live.
For sure. Yeah, you're right. That's really funny, Chris.
You have Hulu, definitely watch Letterkenny on YouTube. I highly recommend Pitch Meeting with Ryan George. Actually, anything and everything Ryan George does, especially now with the pandemic and everything, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I was certainly back. I think we all will. And I'll just quickly back up another show on Hulu that our friend Rich got us into, which it's not as recent, but Future Man Season 3 dropped a couple months ago. And I did rewatch, I watched the whole Season 3 when it did come out and watched a couple episodes that I liked from it recently as well, more recently. And I do recommend that. If you've never heard of it, I think it's a smart, stupid show, if you will, much cleverer than it is on the surface, and does a really good job, has great writing, and it's just a nice little, sort of junk food-ish thing to consume, a la Letterkenny. They're 24, 25-minute episodes, and you could just sit there and just, take them in and enjoy it. And it's really funny and really clever at the same time. So
yeah, it is absolutely a good one. All right. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is I'm going to bring up Briar Patch. So this was a Sam Esmail produced. Sam Esmail was the showrunner on Mr. Robot. He became the producer on Briar Patch. It's kind of this modern day noir story in this southern town. I think Texas, I believe, is where it's set, and it's enjoyable. It's worth a watch. It's no Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot's I think one of the best shows of our this last generation of TV, but it's a good time, and I'm fairly certain it's a one-off. I don't think they're doing another season of it. So yeah, it's worth a watch. Rosario Dawson's in it. I think some of the performances are pretty good, and it's definitely worth watching. So I'm gonna put that one on there and move it along.
Throw it out there,
Scotty. Yeah.
All right, so I'll just give you guys two more games. Again, one good one not so much. I will say Ion Fury. I believe I got Steve-O to buy it. Old school. It's if you're interested in this stuff, it's in the old build engine that Duke Nukem was made in. So it's in that aesthetic. And it's just old school run and gun, FPS, just blow all the enemies away. There's funny references and funny lines and shit. And it's just a straight up nice, probably 8 to 10 hour said and done FPS. And I do recommend it. It was also cheap and not taking up much space in my hard drive. So I'll give it credit on that. Mm-hmm. And then on the opposite end, I'm just about to finish a game called Those Who Remain, which I was excited for on the outset, but in practice, it's just kind of a lame, unimpressive, and mediocre walking sim. It has cool ideas, but they're buried in just not well handled mechanics, and story-wise, it likes to think it's telling you something deeper than it is. So while I have been playing it, I really can't recommend it, but that is one of the recent ones I did check out. So
I have enjoyed the little bit of Ion Fury that I've played so far. I do wish they could have kept the original name, Ion Maiden.
Yes.
But, sometimes you get sued, Yeah. All right. E, you got anything else?
Well, Iron Maiden has a, they name themselves after a medieval torture device.
Right?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about games quickly as well. I picked up Ancestors, The Humankind Odyssey, which is actually a really neat kind of exploration into how humans develop their initial things. The skill tree is developing neurons in the brain. And so far, it's been actually a fairly impressive endeavor, and it's on Days of Play sale on PlayStation Network, and picked up for $20, and it's well worth even the $40 it was originally. I'm enjoying the heck out of it now.
Yeah, nice. Very nice.
Chris?
Okay, well, before you guys come here, this may have explained part of my audio problems. What I've been this is going to sound really great. What I've been playing with the most is right here. I have you guys can't see it if you're listening to it, but it's a replica of the Sequential Circuits Pro 1 put out in the early 80s by Sequential Circuits. This remodel is put out by Behringer. The model is put out by Behringer, and it is a truly analog synthesizer. So in my spare time, I'm sitting here creating sounds from the sine waves themselves, which is both awesome and frustrating because you got to get used to the dials. You can't save the presets. So before this podcast, I found something I really liked, and I hit the wrong oscillator and lost it.
And that, it was gone. Sure.
See, you got to take a picture of like all the dial settings.
Exactly. Yeah.
Michelle Jarre and Vince Clark were talking about. It's like, yeah, remember you used to go out and you'd hit a Polaroid to make sure you got all your settings. Yeah. But yeah, this has been my video game, the Behringer Pro 1 that I got for my birthday. That's been my video game aside from Maneater that Scott loaned me.
Yep. Yeah, very
nice, man. All right, so I want to talk about you know, like not a ton of people have seen this, but I think it's a fairly important cartoon that's come out. Like She-Ra on Netflix has really, really, really broken a lot of barriers in terms of like LGBTQ. Things that happen on like ostensibly children's shows. Like, you know, I'm fucking 36 years old and I watch the shit, but like it's really good, very affecting. The showrunner Noelle Stevenson was in comics first. She did I believe she did a comic called Lumberjanes. I think that was her. And has just been doing really good work for a long time. And it's a really actually just a good show, like outside of all the other stuff that they're doing with, you know, kind of breaking down the barriers of like what you can do on TV and whatnot.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, it's just a really well done version of the like superhero or like, you know, She-Ra / He-Man show that you watched when you were a kid, with other sensibilities in mind than what they had in mind when they were making those shows. So I highly recommend it. Check out She-Ra, the new Netflix version. It's phenomenal. It's actually really, really good.
It's 4 seasons? It's a bunch of seasons, right?
I think it's 5. Okay. And this is the final season. So it's over now.
Right.
They're all like, you know, every episode's like 24 minutes or whatever.
Oh, I thought you
were I was about to sneeze. So I was making a funny face.
All right. So, I hinted at it earlier, so maybe I'll lead off and I'll let you guys, E, and Steve will talk about it. But you have the background there. Harley Quinn, the new version of it. What?
Medicine Woman?
Yeah. Harley Quinn, awesome cartoon. Again, I think it's a good segue, Steve, because a lot of the She-Ra stuff, it's addressing like a lot of that, but I'll steal something from Ian, and then I'll let him talk about it more. It's deconstructing the Batman like mythos, like universe in general, and in a great, amusing way, a very adult way. Like they throw around a lot of curse words, a lot of like banding about. Like it's very adult, very mature written, but it's so funny, and they have so many awesome jokes. So I do recommend it. And you guys have seen. There's 2 seasons. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
I've only seen the first and only recently. You guys have watched the second, but
we're mid-second season right now. It's 10 episodes into a 13-episode season at the moment.
Oh, it's great. We'll be hopefully doing an episode about because I'm fascinated by the fan response to Harley Quinn because on paper it shouldn't have worked because of the stereotypes that go into the fanboy outrage over changes in their sacrosanct mythology, and this one just destroys it all. But it's still. And for the most part, from what I see online, a beloved kind of addition to it.
Yeah. I think what it does 2 things right. A, it gets new people interested. I have watched this with my friend Pam. I watch like my roommate Louis' girlfriend Liz absolutely loves it. I 100% guarantee she's never read a comic in her life. You know, like this doesn't depend on the comic book fandom for it.
It transcends that. Yeah.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is it's really well written.
Yeah.
Which means that you're going to also get all those comic book fans. You know, like anybody who's not like an absolute like asshole is going to like hate something just because there's women in it is going to like this show.
But those that were traditionally would be called out for hating a show like this on paper seem to
have rally
around it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, that's what I mean. Like, you know, like unless you're that like completely far like to this edge person who's like no show revolving around women can be good, you're gonna like this show because it's really well written. It doesn't matter if you're like, you know, those little like stereotypical things don't really make people not like this now because it's so well written and so well done. You know,
and I mean, they're even drawing like the fourth wall breaking, that kind of stuff, even in an amazing and again hilarious way. Like you said, Steve-O, just to back you up, the writing has been so spot on that you almost can't, like, unless you're the biggest asshole, like you said, in the world, you can't help but appreciate the way they've been unfolding the story, but also telling a great story again within the Batman universe.
I think we're going to go into this in depth.
We'll definitely follow up on it.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do an episode on it. Chris, you have anything to say about that? I'm sorry.
I was going to say I haven't watched it yet, and I will.
Okay.
When I get my ass in gear to actually fucking watch it.
You got anything else though, Chris? Because I got one more story for you guys. I was going to spring.
You skipped over. I want to talk about Mafia 2, which, speaking of offensive, I am partly Italian, and my God, is it the most Italian thing I've ever.
I got a goal.
My boy Vito, you're ruining your life. I know you get a good job. It is almost offensively Italian. I'm fine with it. Whatever. Like it's okay. It's okay. It's no GTA. It's the Italian knuckle of GTA.
But I mean, technically, the first one was released in like 2008, like maybe 2006. It's been a while.
Hey.
I got a goal. Yeah.
Hey, talk with the hands over here.
Sure. But I mean, they did recently release that the port of it. Sure.
What are we on? Chris, go ahead.
I think with Scott mentioned you guys going to bring up. I am like I said for like Ian told about the YouTube. I told about the YouTube shows I was watching. Oh, of course, I'm going to say it right now. Ian got me into Rising with Cristobal and Sagar and Jetty last year.
Actual real life politics. Yeah.
Right on.
Is one of the most well-balanced shows out there. They are both populist, both anti-establishment, but they have people from both sides, all sides, and it's a great show. But to be honest with you, the way the world is, you really need to get off there. Once that's over, going to Ryan George, seeing the pitch meeting, what we do in the shadows, all these things that we were talking about. Us laugh. Letterkenny. This is exactly why Beth and I had a Letterkenny marathon last week. But the thing is, it's just like it's an excellent morning show. It's 5 days a week. They do a couple segments over the weekend. It's on YouTube. It's The Hill Rising with Cristobal and Sagar and Jetty. Nice.
What?
All right. Let me talk about something that we have not talked about yet. I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about Midnight Gospel.
I was waiting for you to bring that one up.
I was going to talk about Westworld, but I'm going to do Midnight Gospel. So I really enjoyed Midnight Gospel. It's another show that, like, your mileage may vary. I think it's probably best to be a little bit fucked up when you watch it. Get a little high. Like, I was a little bit drunk when I watched it. And, it is like, it's a show that's like, here's two people like talking philosophy, and we're going to throw some like bizarre cartoon animation into the mix here. And, we're just throwing it at a wall. This is Pendleton Warren's follow-up to Adventure Time. And I really enjoyed it, especially the last two episodes. Like I said, I know your mileage may vary. I know, Scott, you weren't as big of a fan of it as I was, but I thought that it was just fun. It's not like something that's like, oh, this philosophy is going to change your life, but it's just like, I want to listen to two intelligent people talk for a little bit and see what they think. So I enjoyed most of it. There were a couple episodes that were like, whatever, but for the most part, I liked it.
So just briefly, a la the Rule of Three thing, I did watch the first 3 episodes, Steve-O. And like, yeah, while that animation is very entertaining and very amusing and like does like vaguely match to like some weird like surreal like ratio to what they're actually talking about.
Almost feels like Super Jail, right? I don't know if you
kind of, yeah, sure. I see what you mean. If anyone's out there familiar with it,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It does like have that sort of aesthetic to it, like that feel,
but without the depth of Super Jail.
Yeah, like I guess that's it. Like I'll turn it over to you. Like you said, like Steve-O, your mileage may vary, and like while I didn't hate it, again, I just was like, you know what? I'm not going to keep watching this, even though it's okay on the surface. And sure, yeah, get a little fucked up and watch the animation. That's nice. That's amusing. It's entertaining. But it just wasn't enough to keep me engaged with it. So,
yeah.
Well, I'm going to talk about a comic. Surprise, surprise, Steve.
Please.
Killing Stalking. The best romance I've read in a long time. And I don't care what anyone says that it's not and that it's a toxic relationship and all that. It's a beautiful, fucked up story.
Exploration of
and it brought me back to the Fugees. So actually, I found it through the Fugees. Oddly enough, I was looking up. No, Killing Me Softly. I looked up that song and I heard all about Killing Stalking. I'm like, what is this? I started reading it and I adored it. I thought it was such a fascinating tale. It's fucked up beyond belief. Don't get me wrong, but it's beautiful.
I mean, it's hardcore, right? Like, I mean, based on your synopsis of it. But I believe we're going to do an episode of it. But
yeah, I'm just promoting future shit left and right here.
Absolutely. I hear you.
All right, nice. Chris, what do you got?
Trigger warnings.
I'm going to say, like, basically, once again, I want to. They have a show on Twitch on the June 11th, but DJ Keeper from Magic Sword, after our podcast, like my until for the pandemic, watching his DJ sets, I've learned so much. As somebody who's a musician, is composing and futzing around with this thing. It's interesting to actually, from somebody who didn't know what DJs did, how they did it, like.
Sure. Yeah.
And then talk to one of my friends who's an amateur DJ. Kind of put it all together. I do have to say that, he didn't have one last week tonight, and probably not next week because they're preparing for an online gig. But I have to say that has been something I do rewatch because I'm quite fascinated. It's just like watching a really good guitarist or a piano player or whatever, singer. It's just I've gotten a new appreciation for DJs and people who work, because the synthesizer, I pointed out before, if you're didn't see it, doesn't have a keyboard. I mean, a synthesizer is just you futz around with knobs, and I really did learn a lot. I am learning a lot about what DJs do, and it's been one of these things that's gotten me through a lot lately.
Nice. Yeah. All right, so we're getting pretty deep into this now. I'm going to say this. If you got anything else to say them all now, and then I'll go through whatever else I've got. So, Scotty, why don't you start us off?
Well, I have a surprise story for you guys, but I wanted to save it for the end. So why don't you just go through your list, Steve? I'll spit out whatever you got left, and then I'll tell you guys what I've been waiting to tell you. So go ahead.
Well, does anybody else have anything they want to shout out?
Nier Automata. Great if you're into philosophy. I 100%ed it. Trials Mana or Psyche no Setsu 3, if you played it back when I did. I 100%ed it, but it's nostalgia reasons, and I hate nostalgia. I don't know why I did it. Yeah, I think that's it.
With that, what do you got, Stevo?
Well, Chris, you have anything else you want to say before I go? Because I got like a whole list here.
I still watch Star Trek. It's on. It's part of the. Mention Star Trek again, second time in a row. All right, out.
100%. All right, cool. So, all right, I'm going to go through my list.
Cool.
We got DuckTales.
Yes, technically on my list, but I was going to give it to you, yes.
The new DuckTales has been amazing. I think this is season 2, and it's been incredible. 3, I'm sorry. And it's been incredible so far. Started at the beginning, watch all of it. The cast is amazing. David Tennant, Danny Pudi, Kei Mikuchi, so many more. Like just go look it up, check it out. It's awesome. Westworld, the new season, Westworld season 3. I thought it was pretty solid. I thought it was better than the second season. Maybe not quite as good as the first, but
to a degree. I'll back it up.
Definitely worth a watch, and still asks some good questions and talks about some interesting stuff. I know that the new season of Killing Eve is out. I saw the first 2. I have not seen any of the third one yet, but it's a great show. I'm really looking forward to watching it. So, and I hear that season 3 is pretty good so far. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt came out with a Choose Your Own Adventure episode, which was interesting. Like I think it was kind of on par with Bandersnatch. It was all right, nothing like mind blowing, but it was pretty good.
Sure.
Had a good time with it. And I wanted to mention the community table read.
Yeah.
I think they're still accepting donations for it. It was for a COVID-19 charity, but they did a table read of an episode in season 5. They got the whole cast back, except for Pierce, except for Chevy Chase, because he's a fucking asshole. So they didn't want to do an episode with him in it. But it was the episode right after he died. Spoiler alert: he dies in Community. So. That was pretty solid.
He what?
What? And then the only other show that I don't know why I saved this one for last. The only other show that I've watched any of, I think, is Avenue 5. The only new show. I've got an old show that I'm catching up on right now, but I won't talk about that. But Avenue 5, which is like the Hugh Laurie HBO stuck on a spaceship show. And it was... mildly amusing, but really not as good as I was hoping it would be. So,
it's funny, Steve. I was sort of considering watching it, and then I forgot that it was premiering, and then I didn't hear much about it either way. Really?
Yeah, it's because it wasn't that great, but it was all right. I saw the first 6 episodes, and then I kind of just haven't gone back to it. I mean, I'll watch the rest of it at some point. But
before you go on, Scott, Steve-O, because the first 2 seasons of Killing Eve, because Beth and I just watched those 2, we're waiting for season 3 to drop. Did you say you watched season 3, or are you just?
I haven't seen any of season 3 yet. Season 3 is mid-season right now.
Okay, because I was curious if it dropped yet. We're waiting for that.
Yeah, no, not quite. Oh, I mean, it's dropped on, or whatever, however many episodes are on BBC. So.
But you started waiting for the end. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. Anyway, Scotty, go ahead.
All right, so I got a story for you guys. The night we decided to, we were scheduling, and we scheduled this episode for today. After we were done doing our happy hour sort of Zoom thing, an episode of fucking Knight Rider came on, and I was quite a little bit unsober, I admit that.
Sure.
It was midnight. It was maybe 12:30. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch this episode of Knight Rider. And of course, I guess anybody of our generation, if remembers the theme, the second it came on, dude, I was I just want to hear the theme. And then, they showed... You guys remember this? What shows used to do was to show you snippets of what happened in the episode, what's about to happen, right? So here's a Michael Knight gets critically shot. Then he's in the hospital, questions his commitment to the whatever organization. He leaves the organization, gets married. His wife gets blown up and murdered. He gets revenge. This is all this episode. He gets revenge and with Kit rejoins the Force all in the same episode. And I was like, this is fucking amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Steve-O, didn't you interview Kit?
We did.
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I believe that's up on the YouTube channel somewhere.
At we did interview Kit the car. But all I'm saying is it was just so perfect. The night we decided to put the pop culture roundup on, an hour after that, I was chilling in my room, again having some drinks, etc. And I was like, Knight Rider's coming on. Let me just sit here. I got nothing else to do. Let me watch the episode for 40 minutes. I was like, this is intense. So much shit just happened in this one random episode. And of course, it's a thing from my nostalgic childhood. So yeah, I wanted to throw that out to you guys as a funny story that coincided with the scheduling of this episode, and that's all.
You heard it here first. Go back and watch Knight Rider.
Yeah. What's up, Chris?
Actually, there's 2 things I did forget. Sorry, Scott, I wanted to close out on that. Number 1, the Parks and Rec, their special was quite good.
Yes.
And number 2, I cannot believe not one of us brought up Better Call Saul, because this season was fucking amazing.
I agree. I guess it's because it ended a little bit earlier, it was further on, but you're right. I definitely backed it up.
Pre-quarantine, right? Or just around then. Yep. But
but for sure, it's amazing.
Heard your story. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of this season of Better Call Saul yet, so that was not on my radar. But I'm waiting for it to come out on the streaming services. But anyway, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Unless anybody else has anything.
No, that was it. I was saving that for you guys, but yeah, I just thought it was really funny, brought it all together.
Very nice, very nice. All right, well, let's call it a night then. I've had a good time, gentlemen. This is The Lost Singles discusses fucking everything. And I have been your host, Steve Ramosi, joined today by Scott Thurlow.
See you the next Knight Rider episode. Doo-doo-doo-doo,
Jonathan E. Manzer.
Yeah, that's the next Great British Bake Off episode.
And Christopher Morgan.
Fuck, I have to go watch Top Chef now.
Good day.
Have a good night.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.